I've got Blair with me today from Breva. We aren't going to discuss football, or as Blair calls it, soccer, but we are going to dive into how sales is a performance sport. So, Blair, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Could you
Yeah,
give me the elevator pitch of yourself and Breva?
yeah. So I've been in fintech forever, and Breva is a bridge between small businesses and lenders.
Mm,
And we help we connect small businesses to capital, and we connect lenders, banks, credit unions, CDFIs in the U.S., Certified Development of Financial Institutions, to businesses that want capital. But our what's different about us is we focus on the small business. We help them get ready so that they get approved for a loan, no more red exit denial, and we help them manage that capital and be better operators of their business.
okay, cool. And I like that. And I know that you're from our previous conversation that you're keen on data and numbers and everything like that. So can you give the listeners an idea of the scope of where you guys are at the moment and like team sizes, maybe what sales numbers you're focused on?
Yeah, we are very definitely a startup, and are in the process actually of onboarding our first clients, which is a very exciting time. So lots of lots of work,
Yeah.
little less time to watch football. Although I've got more than one screen, so I still manage to keep up. The our goal is to support and serve 1 million businesses by 2034,
Nice.
and kind of a long-term goal there. But we're moving quickly along that process.
Okay, cool. And you said it's really helping those small businesses connect. So
Yeah,
can you give a any real life examples of a business that the value that they're looking for that you're adding?
absolutely. We interviewed a 11 11,000 businesses
Mm,
to train our AI models. And one of the things that came out of this, and this is, I know, going to be shocking, that small business owners don't like to do accounting. As it turns out, large business owners don't like to do accounting either.
Yeah.
And I think accountants may not like to do accounting, but so one of the things that we've built in is automated financial reporting,
Mm,
even projections. And the goal here is to make it easier for small businesses to get capital. So we can help them build that plan. We can help them free up time from a task that no one really likes.
mm,
And so they can focus on, if it's a restaurant menu development or, whatever it is, whatever they got into business to do.
mm.
And back to the lender, it's accurate and reliable financial reporting, which is generally a covenant in the loan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the goal here, reduce the number of no's in credit applications, right? Everyone wants to say yes, it's better for everybody, but there are requirements.
Yeah.
So let's help the business get to where, you know, their lender can safely say yes.
Mm,
That's a win.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And for the people that maybe I feel like there's probably two buckets: the people that have gone for loans and it's been a yes, and then the people that have gone for loans and it's been a no. So what is the how many people are affected by the no's?
Yeah. I met with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they had a great way to describe that. It was the happy path and the sad path.
Okay,
And
yeah.
everyone wants to get more people on the happy path,
Mm,
right? So in the US here, I'll use this as an example. We have a thing called the Small Business Administration,
mm,
and they're called SBA loans because everything has to be a TLA, three-letter acronym.
okay.
And the government underwrites 75% of the value of the loan. So it takes a lot of the risk out for the lender. 41% of SBA applications are denied, and a further 25% aren't fully funded.
Okay.
There, I think last time I looked, there were 58,000 SBA loans approved fiscal year to date.
Mm,
And so, you know, if you do the reverse math on how many of those have been denied, that's a massive opportunity out there. And even a small percent, 10%. If we
mm,
can take 10% of those, no's and move them into yeses
mm,
or safely, right? I mean, there's credit requirements and everything else in banking, but safely do that.
mm,
Or even that 25% that's, underfunded and
mm.
move that to where it's fully funded. Think about the economic impact there, right? It's
Yeah,
better for the lender. It's certainly better for the small business.
yeah,
That's economic activity, right? That's the velocity of money going up.
yeah,
That's more jobs, more spending, more, everything else. All
definitely.
good. But
Yeah, yeah, and it's as we when we first spoke, when you explained it to me, or even just now again hearing it, it's one of those business models that when I hear it, it's like this has clearly been a problem for a long time, and people haven't done anything. There's no one been here to solve this problem. So how did this really come about for you guys? What did
yeah,
that conception journey look like?
that's a great question. So we actually started as as a balance sheet lender and
Okay,
started down the process of becoming a CDFI, a Certified Development Financial Institution.
okay.
And what we saw was we didn't have any insights into the health of a borrower until they missed a payment.
Mm,
And fundamentally, that's a problem, right? So we started thinking about a crystal ball. How can we have insights into the health of the business, not so we can help them, right? And the goal is don't be gracious when somebody misses a payment. Let's help them not miss that payment in the first place.
yeah.
And it really came from there. And literally talking to our borrowers, and we've gotten out of the lending business, talking to our borrowers and thinking, wow, we can actually do something here.
Mm,
And voice of the customer, go figure. What's your number one problem? What is it that you do that you don't want to do?
mm,
And what impact does that have? Ooh, well, now here's a problem we can literally solve.
yeah. Yeah.
And if you think from the lender, from a bank or a credit union standpoint, everybody wants to be a consultant, right? Consultative sales, all that stuff, whatever. And lenders, they're salespeople.
Mm,
So, and even the relationship managers after the loan is closed, the how do we? It takes data to be a consultant,
mm,
right? So you can have a fundamental conversation and say, okay, this is what you need to do to get approved,
yeah.
or this is how we can help you better, be a better steward of the capital that we've given you. These are really important things, and it's using the business's data to help the business,
Yeah.
right? And that's fundamentally different too. It's not like, let me use your data to figure out how I'm going to sell more stuff to you. It's how can we use your data to accomplish your goals?
Yeah. 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 Nicer. And I think the Inception story really makes sense because it you have to be in this to really understand the full journey of it. I don't know, maybe you've got some competitors that have had a different journey and they probably don't have as full picture as you. I'm just guessing because I feel like to really be in this and seeing it the full picture, you have to be involved in it before and experiencing part of that pain as well.
Yeah, everybody has competitors. With startups, it tends to be, kind of like partial competitors.
Mm,
I'm not sure we have a full-on direct, somebody that does exactly what we do.
yeah.
But there's, cash flow underwriting for loans is a big, and rightfully a big trend, both in business lending and in personal lending, because
Mm,
everybody's more than just their credit score.
yeah.
But what makes us different and unique is kind of the focus on that is the focus on the business, the small business,
Mm.
and making that 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 owner a better operator of their business.
Yeah.
And so better run businesses repay their loans at a higher rate, which seems important in banking,
Yeah.
right? And then they grow and they need more larger loans,
Mm.
which they're also likely to repay.
Yeah.
Seems like a
Funny that.
good thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's the goal.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Okay. So this has been top of mind with myself, and I've had a few discussions recently with some clients, some potential clients and prospects. Really, I see the argument on both sides. So you, as a business, have got your niche of helping small businesses that don't already understand their financial situations as much, or maybe aren't getting approved for loans. Why haven't you niched into an industry?
Um, that's a good question. Do you mean like a specific type of small loan or small business?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you know, we the parts that we're focused on right now are kind of universal.
Mm,
Um, accounting, finance. Um, we we have an AI financial or CFO financial coach we named Bree,
mm,
and the support and the coaching that Bree provides is pretty universal to every small business.
yeah.
So it's specific to finance and accounting. We can do some more like store stock, things like that that might be pretty a little more sector specific. But
Mm,
why limit, right? At this point, why limit?
yeah.
Balance sheet's a balance sheet, income statement's an income statement.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I think it's an interesting balance because I probably see it as an even split between businesses that are in startup or scale up or established or are ready to sell. I see a real split between either going niche within niche horizontally or
yeah,
niche vertically. Um, and I don't think there's a right answer. I'm always just curious because it with your efforts on the selling side, I imagine it means that you've got more to go after, but then maybe less penetration between them. Would that be fair?
yeah. And so we have two sides to our platform.
Mm,
We have the lender side, which is and much more of a traditional enterprise SaaS technology sales process. For banks, credit unions, um, finance companies, people that are lending to small businesses.
mm,
And then the small business side, which, tends to be a little bit more of a mass market approach,
mm.
where, the goal is, you know, organizations that also support small businesses.
Yeah.
And there is an infrastructure. So, we pursue those in terms of like more chunks, if you will,
Mm,
big groups.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So it's so you are still taking a getting deep into the markets approach, but then you've got the other part of the business where it is more mass market, and you've got to just cover off as many as possible. So maybe higher deals, lower deals, value.
Yeah, and so it is a horizontal niche on the small business side for sure,
Mm,
and it's pretty big, pretty
yeah,
big niche,
yeah.
at least here, in the U.S. But in maybe a little bit more of a vertical niche on the enterprise side,
Mm.
where
Business.
sometimes it gets broken out as small business lending, sometimes commercial, or small commercial,
Yeah,
a little bit more of a maybe a vertical niche there.
yeah, definitely. No, that does make sense. Yeah, because I definitely count that as a vertical niche of it's businesses that support small businesses. which is
Yeah.
pretty niche. So yeah, so you think having a balance is pretty helpful between businesses. So having something that you can go mass market and then having something where you can dive a bit deeper.
Yeah. And interestingly, our sales and go-to-market strategies are very different.
Okay.
There's some similarities and some connections.
Mm.
You know, thought leadership is always always a component of it.
Yeah.
The kind of that consultative, selling component of it. But yeah, the go-to-market motions are different, very different.
Okay.
Um, it, we're a small organization. We're going to invest in automation as opposed to, ad spending,
Mhm.
or, we're not going to have an ad on the Super Bowl
Yeah.
for $10 million
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? So automation is a much bigger issue. And then kind of partnering for credibility.
Mm.
I call it coattails. You ride in on somebody's coattails. You're essentially borrowing their credibility.
Yeah.
So that partner network in our go-to-market strategy is really, really important.
Mm.
A little bit on both sides, but in particular in the small business side.
Okay. Okay.
And, and then enterprise sales, technology sales has to be very personalized,
Yeah.
very data driven, and in the language of the prospect,
Mm.
which is very true on our go-to-market motions for the lender on the lender side of our platform.
Yeah. Okay. But because the other side is so broad, you can't necessarily cover off all the languages between all of them. Is that?
Yeah, it's difficult it would be difficult for us to target, individual small businesses, with the scale that we need.
Yeah.
But we can, do that on the lender side. I
Yeah.
mean, there's degrees of magnitude difference in the numbers that we need there. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Okay. So I'm curious on the actual reaching outside, so the cold traffic, the cold outbound. What channels are you liking? What channels are you not liking at the moment?
So I'm a it's amazing how like things like LinkedIn has changed for the enterprise side here.
Okay. Yeah.
And and we've all heard the statistics about how much of a buyer's decision is made before they actually start a communication.
Yeah.
But in innovation sales, I mean, we're doing something different.
Mm.
So, we're kind of spreading the gospel, right? So we are literally saying there's a new and better mousetrap. So there's a big education component to it,
Yeah.
and you need the content out there to support that. It needs to be I got a cold outreach this morning, and it went to one of my colleagues, one of my teammates as well, and it was just the same thing, cut and paste, right? And it started personalized, and then it got generic,
Mm.
and it wasn't what it was lacking is what's in it for me.
Yeah.
Caught my attention with the personalization at first, but then it lacked, okay, it left it to me to do the mental gymnastics
Mm.
to to figure out the value.
Yeah.
And, and you can't do that. It's got to be, specific, and then this is what's in it for you.
Yeah.
And, a high probability that that's a strategic metric that they're looking at:
Yeah.
revenue, profit, business development, lending more loans, right?
Yeah.
And this one lacked that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
then some things to support that
mm.
in the sphere, whether it's on LinkedIn, the website, blogs, things like that. People will do that research when
Yeah.
they're before they book an appointment, and certainly before they continue on into the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So
So,
it's it sounds like people cut corners in maybe their outreach and not and not having the same brand feel throughout the whole organization. And then
Yeah.
also, so I have when I do training sessions or breakdown sessions or workshops with people, um, I two things that it sounds like that person did wrong that came there is people are selling the features, not the benefits.
Yeah.
Telling you all the features about X, Y, and Z without telling you why it benefits you. Um,
Yeah.
so sell benefits, not features. And then
Yeah.
two is what I call like my me radar. So if I'm reading an email and all of a sudden the person's just talking about how great their business are or how great they are, then the me radar goes off. So yeah, it sounds like a couple of those problems. Would that be fair?
I think that's fair.
Sorry to interrupt. I know I will let you get back to the podcast in a second. I just wanted to say some of the problems that we've just been speaking about in the sales function, there's way more. So, what I've done is I've created a document, a guide, an informational sheet of all the different problems that you or other businesses may experience in their sales function. And I've put it in the first link in the description. So, click the link, enter your email, and I send the document straight to you. I'll let you get back to the podcast.
And the challenge with sales is you have to have a pretty big ego to be into sales,
Yeah,
right? And but in order to be successful at sales, you got to check your ego and focus on the prospect.
yeah.
And so that can be a challenge.
Mm.
It's a challenging kind of juxtaposition and transition.
Yeah, yeah.
So that,
Sorry.
maybe a lot of confidence to be in sales
Mm.
is the way to be good at sales because you get told no all the time and all those things.
Yeah,
But
not ego so much, but more confidence.
confidence, yeah.
Okay.
And you're spot on. Even instead of benefits, it's the impact, right? It's the impact. And yeah, something we discuss internally, and I think is a big trend too in tech sales, is not just selling to that impact, but even pricing on that impact
Mm.
too. And as opposed to subscription or whatever it is,
Mm.
license pricing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, so and yeah, when you say the difference between impact and benefit, you mean the knock-on effect of getting these benefits. So what that actually
Yeah,
will do for the business as a whole. So not people not getting stuck on the initial benefits of like so you'll be able to ask any questions to our AI bot, but actually you'll be able to know that your finances are all in place because you've asked the questions to the AI.
yeah. Successfully from a small business actually getting approved for the loan
Yeah,
is, a big impact.
yeah, pretty
And
good.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And getting the capital you need. And
Mm.
then, from a lender standpoint, it's not just grow your portfolio. What I would say is, 10% growth or 20% growth means, this amount in incremental loans and this amount in margin,
Mm.
right? Bottom line profit here, net interest margin for lending, and and that can be calculated.
Mm.
It does take time to do that, but that's that. You know, um, I would rather on the enterprise side spend my time with research and have a lower number of outreaches, but very strategic ones
Mm.
than a high number of more generic ones.
Yeah.
Because I'll get more prospects into the pipeline and they'll be higher quality, much more likely that we're going to have that connection
Yeah.
and move along and throughout the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And not annoy them as well. Like because you're spending the time, people can tell that you're spending the time to reach out to them. If you've got a small pool of people that you can reach out to,
Yeah.
you don't want to burn that. Um,
No, you don't, and you don't want to burn that bridge. And I tell people this, like, everybody, if every executive, senior manager, mid-level manager should meet, in their month, they should break up time to meet with vendors. Because what people want and need from sales is innovative and creative ideas to problems.
Mm,
And salespeople talk to their competitors
yeah.
and in ways that they can't. And so it really is that consultative,
Yeah.
approach. Here's a good idea.
Mm,
And so in my style of communication, I tend to break things down, simply. And I use a lot of metaphors, preferably mixed. So to me, sales, and somebody else came up with this in a sales training I took, and it stuck with me. It's not my original idea, but
mm,
sales is, should we talk? And that's like, here's the creative way to sell to solve your business problem.
mm,
Should we keep talking? Yes, that is a valid potential,
yeah.
right? Should you do this? And then should you do this with us?
Mm,
And no is okay at any of those, at those places. And
yeah.
really, it's incumbent on the salesperson to get to know as
Yeah.
quickly as possible if there's going to be a no, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that creative idea, you're not going to get that if you're only talking to the same internal people all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So, pick and choose vendors,
mm,
interview them, see if there's something good there. And if there is, keep talking.
yeah.
And if there's not, that's okay too.
Definitely, definitely. And I do think, well, maybe you'll tell me differently, but I do think across your side of the pond, the salespeople definitely have more of that consultative approach, and also are maybe more highly regarded that they will have that approach. Uh, Over this side, there's still a lot of stigmatism around salespeople. And there's always going to be, oh, the salesperson's pestering me, but um, there's a real over over here. There's people uh, feel like they're going to be closed instead of helped.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. I've been very lucky, I think, in my career that well, very fortunate for sure, that I've been with organizations that have invested heavily into training and education.
Mm,
And I think that is critical. And then a culture there too.
mm,
And I've literally said this to in meetings where I can sense that defensiveness. And to me, the worst case scenario is not that you don't, choose us, that you don't sign our contract. The worst case scenario is that you do, and it was the wrong choice,
yeah.
because that's not profitable for anybody,
No.
right? And my goal, sales's goal, is really decision support.
Mm,
I mean, it's like a project manager. It's, is there enough business value? We want to drive to a good informed decision.
mm,
If it's not, doesn't go our way, that's okay.
yeah.
But and we want to get to a point where if we're not the right one, we bow out early.
Mm,
Since we talked about competitiveness early, I want to win.
yeah.
But if we're not going to win and we're not right, we want to know that in advance.
Yeah.
And as early, it's better for everybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can go on and
But
sell. You can go to someone else that it is a better fit to, and yeah, I think there's always the people push for the close. People push for they're not pushing to find out. They're pushing to get the yes. So yeah, it is a disconnect, and I think it will change over time, like as automation improves, the more competitor, more salespeople come to the market. I think people do need to get better. But I think what you touched on a bit earlier is it's very hard for if you haven't been in different organizations to become better because a lot of the time you just become modeled off of the manager at one place. So I think
yeah,
that is a challenge as well for a lot of people is not having that variation, and they become a not a salesperson, they become a salesperson for that brand, for that business, that one business.
Yeah.
Um,
And everybody sees that where, I mean, it's, I heard this in a meeting yesterday and I've heard it before. It's the pitch slap. And,
mm,
people just roll right into that. Means your point earlier, feature, feature, feature.
yeah.
And there's no, and I think part of that probably is maybe a little bit of anxiety and not the confidence that comes from being really well prepared.
Mm,
You know, I, 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 I do this before every, sales interaction and have, tried to teach, younger salespeople this too. And I've had that opportunity, you know, you need to have a plan for every interaction.
mm,
And and you gotta, okay, what's my goal in this
yeah.
meeting?
Yeah, definitely.
And you have to say the quiet part out loud. You have to ask the questions,
Yeah.
and you can't assume,
Mm,
and you can't have the sunshine pump. You can't think. You got to confirm,
mm,
and ask the question. And the answer is no if you don't,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, uh, you know, get everybody on the same sheet of music. And sometimes it's like, well, I want to have this in my pipeline looking good, so I have a good internal pipeline reporting.
Yeah.
Ask the hard questions,
Yeah.
have transparency in the process, and then things, it's either qualified or it's not.
Mm,
And things tend to progress, right? Or don't, and you move on and find a better target. But
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've definitely seen that a lot, and yeah, I can all of them I've experienced, and I'm sure you have as well. When we were earlier into our sales career, I'm sure we're talking from a point of pain, not from a point of being the best.
yeah,
It's because we've gone through it. It's stuff that we know. So um,
yeah, I've wanted the deal, and I've gotten blind to that.
yeah,
And I mean, yeah, I've got some scars, from that. And I, you learn from those mistakes, but you want it, and it's about me, and get ahead of the process, and I miss something important, and get blindsided.
mm, definitely,
Eh,
definitely.
Not twice though.
No, yeah, yeah. You learn from it. I think
You learn from that. Yeah,
that's the key. Yeah. Okay, Blair. I mean, we could talk about sales all day, I feel like. So
yeah,
and we try and keep these podcasts to the 30-minute mark. I don't know if we're over or under, but I'm conscious we haven't we you mentioned your goals for was it 2030?
yeah. 2034.
Okay,
So
2034.
yeah, a million small businesses is the plan and our goal. Kind of our long term goal.
Mm,
Um, little more short term, it's revenue targets where we are absolutely a startup and a very early stage startup.
mm,
Our tech is, I mean, we're literally doing onboarding, clients now
nice.
on both sides of the platform. So we're market ready,
Yeah.
but we've got pretty ambitious
Mm,
developmental goals there too,
mm,
like everyone our stage does.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So
And we think we've got a compelling, pitch. There's something, it absolutely ties back to strategic metrics, profit, success on both sides. There's a lot of money to be made in small businesses, both for the business and the people that support them.
yeah.
And it has to be both, it has to be both. So, and we make it both.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I don't like to overuse this term, but I do feel like it's fair to say in this circumstance. I think it is a watch this space across the next year for yourself and is it Breva? Do I say it?
Breva,
Breva?
Breva.
Okay,
Yeah,
Breva. So I think yeah, it will be a watch this space, and hopefully in a year's time we can have you back on and we can look back at how many small businesses you've helped so far, how close you are to that
Yeah.
20,000 goal.
Yeah. And we have well over 1,000 that were on the that were transitioning from the wait list and onboarding, closer to 1,500, and it'll grow from there. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're a million's going to be a lot of work, but we're up to the challenge.
Yeah, nice. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. So
And hopefully this time next year, we're working on our expansion into the UK, and I'll join you in London, a fantastic city.
definitely, but we'll have to watch Arsenal, not Chelsea.
Oh, no, so there's a reason that the background is blue. I'm just saying, right? Maybe we can watch Arsenal versus Chelsea,
Yeah.
and we'll get along the rest of the day, and just not for 90 minutes.
Yeah, cool. That sounds good. That sounds good. All right, Blair. Well, thanks for coming on. Where should people check you out? Where should people check Breva out?
That's great. Actually, my contact information is that QR code,
Nice.
and breva.ai is our website. So do hit us up and check us out.
Perfect. All right, that's the pod.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.